you can uplift others by your positivity. So it affects everyone you're around, family, friends, every person you're in contact with. When you are, you can feel it. You can feel the negativity. Like you walk into a room, and when someone's negative, feeling bad about themselves, you can feel that. Versus, like you said, when your energy is good and you're feeling good about yourself because you've done the practices, everybody feels that. So it's just a way of really adding to humanity, I think, and the world needs this now. They really do.
Thank you so much for joining us for another awesome episode of Bioenergetics Beat. I'm Heather Gray, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And today is brought to you by Nikki, Unleash the Wellness Within. It's a non-invasive, easily affordable, highly effective approach to optimize wellness. It's a wearable device that puts frequency better based life in your hands and on your wrist. Make sure to stick to the very, very end because we have a giveaway that you're not going to want to miss out on. But you're also not going to want to miss out on one thing my next guest has to say. I know I say this a lot, but I mean it. Like, this is one of my favorite topics ever, and you're absolutely going to love this woman if you don't know her already. And so I'm super, super excited to bring to you Margie Bissinger, and we will be talking about happiness today. So welcome, Margie, to the show. Yay!
Oh, well, thank you so much for inviting me. So happy to be here with you, Heather.
You got so much happiness. You just welcome a new baby into the family.
This is true. So much joy. It's just miraculous.
Look at that smile on her face. It's like ear to ear. She's such a proud grandma. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, why are we talking about happiness, all that fun stuff.
Okay, so let's see. So happiness goes way back. So I'm a physical therapist, and I've been a physical therapist really for over 40 years. And the happiness piece started early in my 20s. And I'm working as a physical therapist with people with chronic pain. We're talking they're miserable, neck pain, back pain. Each person was more unhappy than the next. And I had just gone through a bad situation in my life. And they're saying, all my patients are like, Margie, you're so happy. What's your key? And I thought if they only knew what I had just gone through, they would never be saying this. But that's when it hit me that, you know what, despite my circumstances, I actually was happy. And that it was an inside job, not based, my happiness was from inside. It wasn't based on my outside, the external circumstances. And so I said, all right, why everyone's so unhappy? What have I done that's let me get through this and sort of ride these waves and be happy regardless of what was going on? And I decided to start teaching them. And now I call them happiness habits. At the time, I didn't know what it was. But I started teaching. You have a lot of time when you're working with people and you're working on their muscles. And so I started teaching that to my patients. And I couldn't believe what started happening. Chronic pain was getting better so much faster than with just traditional physical therapy. And then you also started seeing joy return to their eyes, and people just their whole life started changing. And I realized, to me, that was the foundation of health. And then I studied positive psychology. I worked with a mentor, Marcy Shimoff, to really learn how to teach happiness. And so it's become part of everything I do, really, for the past 40 years. And to me, it's incredible. I just think it's so powerful. No one realizes how important it is and how it can really change your health. But yeah, so I've been doing that. I also have a specialty in osteoporosis. I'm also a health coach. I went back to school to learn nutrition. So I sort of combine the exercise, the happiness work, and the all of the nutrition, etc. And so yeah, so it all works, and it's all, you just see lives change on a regular basis. And as you know, I have a podcast that you've been on, and I've done numerous summits on osteoporosis and bone health. So that's it in a nutshell.
It's all connected, and it's so sad to me that even a lot of functional practitioners like myself, like I was focused on the physical for years and years and years, and I would get cleaned up, and then 6 months or a year later I would relapse, and then I have to start all over again. And it wasn't until I started diving into the mental health aspect, the happiness aspect, the mindset, reframing, nervous system resetting, like all those other things that a lot of people would consider kind of woo woo or fringe, which we're really starting to see as actual, we are emotional bodies to begin with. Those are signals telling our body that there's something going on different than feelings. And that we have a tendency to squash them down, or especially in this culture, feelings are not accepted. Women are just hysterical, or it's that time of the month, and men don't cry, and we've heard all these things, and so it can be really difficult for people to even just be aware of what they're actually feeling. Like you can ask them and they kind of blink at you like, I'm sorry, can you use that word in a sentence? So I just love that you're bringing this to forward, and then you've seen it over and over and over again. So could you tell like maybe one or two little stories about people who came in with chronic pain, and what you were able to accomplish with this? Like,
Yeah, sure. There's one person in particular, and I'm thinking about her. Everything was a problem. Everything hurt and everything, and the pain would change from place to place, and her muscles were in spasm. And, we were doing the basic, and basically what it came down to, I mean, there were so many things, but one thing was who she surrounded herself with. She surrounded herself with so much negativity in terms of her church group. That was the big thing. It ended up her Bible study group. Can you imagine?
wow.
Was so stressful that that would just keep every all her muscles tight, and it would take days to recover. And so when we realized that you can get toxic from the people you're around, it really matters. I mean, the major Harvard study recently done for 85 years, when they looked at what's the most important thing to determine how long people lived and their lifespan as well as the type of life, it wasn't cholesterol, it wasn't their blood work, it was who their relationships were. I mean, it's so important. And so we needed to expose that and say, okay, what's happening here? And so, and there's lots of things you can do with barriers, but for her, simple thing, changing, she did a few things. She changed her group, her church group, she went to a different church group, but also she was living her life, not doing things she enjoyed, really not with passion and purpose. And what did she love? She loved to paint. She loved, so she started taking a painting class. And all of a sudden, while doing these, while finding passion and purpose, she was meeting new friends. All of a sudden, all of this chronic pain, goodbye. She never felt better, never had more energy, and she was like a totally different person. But we had to delve into that realm. It wasn't like, let's just do neck stretches or let's just, work on what's tight. What was the underlying things that were causing this tightness? And I think that's what you see as a physical therapist. You could see the physical manifestations that many other people don't realize that there's deeper work to be done. So I would say that's one person. You want more? You want to talk
I
about?
mean, no, it's just absolutely incredible because, I made the decision about 5 years ago to stop talking to my parents and three of my siblings, and it was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. But you were absolutely right. I was in the fight of my life of, trying to overcome Lyme disease and reverse two autoimmune diseases and detox mold. And I knew that they were just another toxin that I kind of needed to, distance myself from. And there was a lot of guilt that came around that, because we're kind of hardwired into family is everything. And, you don't question your parents and these types of things. So it could be a really tough paradigm to get people to shift from. Yeah,
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you another story too?
absolutely.
Another story is that a person was doing my happiness class from another country. Okay. And she had all sorts of, different types of pains as well. And different type, real anxiety too. And she was doing it from another country. And then she said to me more, and young person, a lot of the people I work with are, working on their bone health, so they're not. But this was a young person. She was, I'm trying to think, I guess at the time she was probably in her late 20s, and she had heard about the happiness class and she wanted to do it. And anyway, so she says to me, I can't do this one module. I just can't do it. And it was all about forgiveness. So she said, so she just stopped, and I didn't hear from her. Months later, she calls, she said, I have to tell you, I finally did it. It was just too hard, but there were people that I hadn't forgiven. And once I forgave these, once she did some things, she wrote a letter and she went through some processes to forgive, not because she condoned what they did, but just because she had to let that go. And that's what I see a lot. And when she did that, oh my God, everything started, the anxiety dissipated. She started feeling better again, so her health returned, and, she was just a much more relaxed, go with the flow person. So sometimes, these things we hold on to, these grudges, they take more than we think away from us. And so those are two stories.
Oh, absolutely. This is gonna be a good time. We're gonna actually quick pause for commercial. When we come back, I want to dive deeper into, what are you really talking about when we talk about happiness? What are some of the set points? How can you increase happiness and how does that affect your health? So we're going to dive deeper into the nuts and bolts of this when we come back. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey there, my name is Jer. I'm an art director and a graphic designer. My wife and I have two grown sons. Both are starting their young careers apprenticing in their fields of passion. And then there's our favorite son, our 7-year-old puppy, Andre. Andre has been the best addition to our family in the last decade. When the pandemic hit 3 years ago, my career was turned upside down. I started working as a contractor for a few clients and working from home. I haven't looked back since. My schedule with work is hectic and often stressful. I have two ways of dealing with my stress and anxiety. Number one is my dog Andre, and number two is my bioenergetic wearable, Nikki. When I need help with my work-life balance, I use my Nikki in stress and anxiety mode. And I have a puppy break. My Nikki touchscreen watch is pretty easy to use. It's cool that I can dial up individual frequency sets. When Andre is ready to go, I tap energy. I've been a longtime hockey coach and play in goal twice a week myself. I find the pain mode has reduced the inflammation in my legs in particular. The nighttime mode has been great. I charge my Nikki every other day at my desk. I've been wearing this cool tech for almost a year. On the latest update, I see there are some new frequency bundles. There's morning, afternoon, evening, on top of nighttime.
Nikki puts a personal wellness center in your hands and on your wrist. Be better, do better. We are Nikki.com.
Fantastic. Well, are you excited to hear about this as much as I am? I work with a lot of, and I imagine Margie does too, a lot of type A personalities where we're real great at, doing the things on our list, but then like things that are like play or fun or right that bring us happiness have a tendency to get put on the back burner. And seeing these correlations with autoimmune diseases and these type A personalities, right? Like probably something very similar you're seeing in your practice. Yeah.
Oh, it's unbelievable because I work, a lot with osteoporosis, and for some reason, people are just so very stressed. Am I eating the right foods? Am I doing the right exercise? And they want to, it's good, they're proactive, but that in itself is really stressing them out. And increased cortisol or stress hormone actually reduces bone loss. So, here they're trying so hard to do all these wonderful things, but yet they're hurting themselves in the process of the stress. So I think, yes, they are very stressed. And I think just our society is very stressed as it is. And I think that people don't prioritize happiness. They think it's sort of like a selfish thing. Oh, come on, I'm really going to work on my happiness. But it's exactly the opposite. Because when you're happier, it's contagious and it affects everyone around you. So when someone's in a bad mood, you feel that, but just the opposite. When you're in a good mood and then the people around you, it uplifts them, and then the people and the world right now can use more people who are happier and in a more positive state. So it's just the opposite.
It's sad how our culture is wired around happiness or not around happiness. Cause like I've been dealing with some of that myself. I just moved to Mexico 2 weeks ago. I'm having a blast. I'm the happiest I've been in a long time. And then I'm getting like this twinge of guilt that's coming along with it because I'm not used to being happy. And I was never taught that being happy was okay. I was taught that it was selfish and, especially being a mom and there's all that. You left your kid back in Colorado. My kid is 21 years old and engaged. He's got a life of his own. It's, like it's okay. So, can you speak a little to kind of how this culture is wired around happiness and some of the guilt and how do you let that go and let yourself actually be happy?
Yeah, I think people just don't prioritize it. And I think that, in terms of, you're right, we are wired. In general, we're wired for negativity because 80% of the average person's thoughts are negative. But that goes back to like the caveman days, when we had to really worry, was there a tiger lurking versus is someone giving us a compliment? So that's the unfortunate thing that we're wired this way. And then I think when people realize, I think with stress, people do realize that can be negative. Like when people put it all together, um, but in terms of the happiness, right, they don't realize that that's going to just change their whole life and that there are practices people can do. So I just think it's not prioritized. You're right. People are like, oh, I have to do this. I can't be happy. But I don't know. I think it's changing though. I think generations coming up really do care about happiness way more in terms of, they won't stay at a job they're miserable at, where people in the past did. So I think things are improving. And I think, look, it's one of the most popular courses in college, it's happiness course. So, I think people are starting to realize. But you're right. A lot of times people don't think they deserve it. A lot of that's with self-worth too. If you don't feel you're worthy, and then how are you going to try to cultivate happiness? So that's part of it in terms of, really loving yourself and just starting to do practices for that, if that's, one of a person's issues, which it is for a lot of people.
So right before we got on here, and I was telling her before the recording that she's probably going to make me cry, and she's like, crying on a happiness, thing, but it's like, no, it's just because you're going to hit some truth with me, right? And that's exactly what you just did. I need to sit with that worthiness and how much happiness I can take in. So thank you for that reminder. But when you say happiness, what is it that you're really talking about?
That's such a good question, because what it's not, and this is what a lot of people think. A lot of people think it's, walking around with this smile and Pollyanna, everything's great in the world. Well, that's not it at all. It's a deep sense of peace and well-being that is not related to your circumstances. It's not based on your circumstances. So that was always a definition I've used for a long time. But then it hit me. There was like something missing from that definition. Like, yes, and and then I also added live your life in color, because I feel too many people, like you ask how they're doing, oh, I'm getting by. We're not meant to get by. We're meant to thrive and enjoy. So that's when I added that live your life in color piece, because I think true happiness is really is able to live that type of life while you're able. Life is not easy. So it's not, so many people think it's based, on your circumstances, but it's not. That's not the point, because you don't know what could happen tomorrow, but it's that you can ride the waves. You have that underlying foundation of peace and well-being. So that's really what I'm talking about.
And so for those, so if you're getting this, those of you that are listening and this doesn't come naturally to you, there's a reason for that, right? And it's like a muscle, like anything else you can strengthen, correct?
Yes, that's the good point. There's actually research done on this. And everybody has something called the happiness set point. It's your base level of happiness. So it's sort of like a thermostat. And some people are glass half full, some people are glass half empty, but regardless of where you start, the research has shown that everybody can increase their happiness levels. And I see this all the time. And what it is, it's learning the habits of happy people. It's just starting to, incorporate different habits. And, it's interesting, Heather. What do you think? Because they studied this set point. What would you think would be, most people think it's circumstances, but what do you think circumstances play? What role in this? Do you have any idea?
Lessons?
Yeah, no, I mean, what
Like,
percent of the happy, so 50% is genetics, and that we
oh,
found
yeah, yeah.
out that we can change with epigenetics. And then circumstances, do you want me to tell you what percent that is? Circumstances,
Oh, was it 5?
it's only 10%.
Okay. Yeah. No, it totally makes sense.
But the other 40% are habits. So we can, most people think, oh, if only I won the lottery, then I'd be happy. Or if I had a different partner, I'd be happy. Or if I made more money, I'd be happy. But that's not it. That doesn't work. That's only a very small percentage. So it's, so 40% are habits plus epigenetics. Now we can even change, the expression of our genes. So we have a huge role that we can play, that we can modify. And when we do these things, really, you can no matter where you start, you really see happiness increase. And that's what's so exciting.
It felt like a part-time job for me in the beginning because I grew up in a lot of dysfunction and abuse. And, so this did not come easy to me at all. I did not have the blueprints for happiness. I did not have the blueprints for unconditional love. And so it was like a constant catching those thoughts and reframing, catching those thoughts and reframing, catching those thoughts and reframing. And while it seemed like a lot of work in the beginning, like now it's no work at all. And now I can see it in other people. Like the minute they start self-deprecating, even if they think they're being funny, and it just makes me cringe. It's like, no, 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 no. Don't talk about yourself like that.
So true and so important. And so many people do. We're nice to the world. We are so nice to everybody else. So often we really just don't stop and see what we're doing, what words we're saying to ourselves. It all has an effect.
Absolutely. So speaking of effect, how does increasing our happiness affect our health?
Oh, it's so unbelievable, actually. They found that people live on an average 9 years longer. There's
What?
35% chance of getting sick. Happier people have a 35% reduced incidence of getting sick. They have 47% reduction in sleep disorders, and cortisol, which is the stress hormone, which has so many negative effects, is 32% higher with people, is reduced 32% by people who are happier. So it really, there's all sorts of things. And then there's major research on forgiveness and heart disease, and it goes on and on. So it's very, very powerful. And, it should be taught to everybody. I don't know why, just why this isn't, you don't go to the doctor and they don't say, they don't ask you about your relationships. They don't even ask unless you're like,
Right.
unless you're clinically depressed, and then they don't really delve into it, but yet it's such a major factor.
Oh my gosh, so true. So I had talked about cutting out the negative people in my life, and sometimes that's not always the case or easy to do. So what are some of the things that you tell people to do to kind of help deal with the negative people in their life?
Yeah, and I had to really, really do this, when you're working as a physical therapist on patients who are in chronic pain. It's really the stronger energy that wins. So if they're negative, like there was one person, I'd come home and my husband knew exactly who I saw because I would be, and so I had to really work on this myself. So a couple things. So at the very base level, you can make boundaries. And so if it's not someone that matters, like that woman I was telling you about, she just changed her group. But that's not possible, as you said. If it's a family member, someone, then you make your boundaries. If they just go on and on about how horrible something is, or they're just, keep on going, you stop the conversation, or you listen maybe for a minute, you make a boundary, like I'll listen to, okay, let's switch over to solutions, or, so you can make a boundary on what you can tolerate. And you can tell that person, you just can change the conversation. So you have boundaries, or just see that person, maybe I'll just see that person once a week. Make whatever boundaries you can. If you can't, there's some other amazing things. Also, I think the number one thing is to raise your own positivity by doing more practices to yourself. As I said, the stronger energy wins. So when you're doing all these great practices and you're feeling good about yourself, that negativity isn't really going to enter. There was a woman who's in my class, and she said, my kids were over, and something that normally would have gotten me, off the roof really didn't bother me at all. And my son said to me, "What have you been doing?" And she said, "It's just these practices from the class that I've been doing. Just when you're doing things, feeling good, looking in the mirror, saying good things about you, deep breathing, whatever you're doing, raising your own positivity really makes a difference." But then what else works is to fill yourself. This is one of my favorite techniques. If you fill yourself with white light's very powerful. So you just visualize yourself being full of white light, and then you send out positivity. You're just sending out good health, good wishes, happiness, whatever. So you're like full of light, sending it out. It's very hard for that darkness to penetrate. And lastly, if it's really that bad that none of that works, then you create in your mind a physical boundary. You actually create a boundary between you and that person, and you just don't allow it. The boundary just doesn't allow those vibes to affect you. So those ways really do work.
I love that. And I love the white light technique because it really does just kind of, it really does just raise your energy up a couple points. It's amazing. And then when I go out, I've actually had people compliment me on a regular basis. "Oh my God, I just love your energy. Oh my God, I just love your energy." And that's how I know. I'm like, yep, I hit the spot. So, as we're kind of going to an end here, and I touched upon this earlier about feeling guilty for living, here and being happy. So why is it not selfish to work on increasing your own happiness, and how do we get rid of some of this guilt around, especially like I said, women, we're taught to put everybody else's needs before our own, that sometimes, filling our own cup up first or putting on our own oxygen mask first, even though that they become, expressions for a reason, but it's still sometimes easier said than done.
Yeah, I think if you realize we have motor neurons. So when you're with someone, your brain is actually trying to copy what they do. And so, if you're going to be, as I said, you can uplift others by your positivity. So it affects everyone you're around, family, friends, every person you're in contact with. When you are, I mean, you can feel it. You can feel the negativity. Like you walk into a room, and when someone's negative, feeling bad about themselves, you can feel that. Versus, like you said, when your energy is good and you're feeling good about yourself because you've done the practices, everybody feels that. So it's just a way of really adding to humanity, I think. And the world needs this now. They really do. So if you sort of, realize that, you know what, by me working on this and elevating myself and elevating my happiness, that's going to be, as I said, it's contagious. So then that's going to help everyone around me. And this is what we need now. We need more people who are able to feel good about themselves and more happiness. We need more joy. We need more happiness in this world, and we need more positivity. So I think when you think of that, you know what, by me doing this and being a beacon of light, because you can spread that, so you just sort of can send it out there. And that's, you send out your good thoughts and good things when you feel better. That's just going to elevate everybody. So I think when you sort of put it in that perspective, it really makes a difference.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite quotes in the world, and by Gandhi, be the change that you want to see in the world, right? Like, I mean, that was like my motto for years, because I kept showing up as angry, grumpy Karen, because I was sick and I didn't feel good. And I have, I still had all those old tapes in my head running, but, I wanted to be the change I wanted to see in the world. So if I wanted to see more happy people who were having fun and expressing love, I had to learn how to do that myself. So thank you for that reminder. And I know we've got a special discount today on your course. If they do Nikki and IKKI 50, they get 50% off your happiness program. Tell us a little bit about that, and we'll have the notes in the show notes so that you can sign up.
Oh, sure. So I started this a while ago when I realized that, being in a group and being together, we could really go through. So it's sort of like a house. There's different pillars of happiness, like this happiness definition I told you. So first, the beginning is like the foundation, being a victor in life and not a victim. And what do we do for that? How do we really work on that mindset? The second is actually mindset. As we said, all those negative thoughts, 80% of the average person's thoughts are negative. So what do we do? How do we rewire the brain for positivity? So that's the second module. The third module is living from the heart. That's gratitude, forgiveness. What practices can we do? Kindness. Then the fourth is the body. What things do we really do to our body that decrease our happiness, and what can we do? The fifth is my absolute favorite. It's a pillar of the soul, living from the soul, learning how we can harness universal power, and just being more connected, and how just amazing that is, and what practices. Then we do passion and purpose, relationships, then we tie it together. So those are 8 classes. Now those are all now pre-recorded, so people can go through those and learn the basics. But then what I found is when people finish the class, they sort of they were doing okay, but sometimes, like when you go back to your life, it's hard to keep those up. So what we did, and this is many years ago, we said, okay, let's meet once a month live. And that changed everything. So we meet once a month. We meet on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So we meet live. If not, everything's recorded, but in every month there's a topic. There's a topic like tonight. It's happening tonight. It's on joy. What simple things can we cultivate more joy? We've done relationships, we've done fun, but it's just a time to really delve into different things, and for people, it helps people continue on that path. So yeah, so the class is normally 197, but it's half price for with
Oh
the
my gosh, that's a killer deal.
yeah, and it's for a year. So the live classes are for a year. Plus,
What?
yeah, plus then they get all the other live classes that we've had. So besides just the 8 classes, there's like a whole year of different workshops. And there's Deborah Wayne, the energy healer. There's a class from her. So yeah, it's really filled with all sorts of tools and all sorts of things.
Well, that's incredible. Like I said, we'll have that link and the discount in the show notes. Also, to make sure while you're there to visit wearenikki.com/podcast, enter in BioBeats for 10% off. And because we really love our customers and the way that we show appreciation, we give away a Nikki device and a wellness set of frequencies $5.98 value on every episode. So make sure to go to the show notes to enter. I know one of our frequencies or newer frequencies is emotion. And it has been a total game changer, kind of also helping me, right? All these little tools to help, because there's no magic bullet. And sometimes when you're a hard case like myself, it takes a lot of different angles to come in to kind of break these old patterns and paradigms, but they're so worth it. So don't give up. Make sure to, check out Margie's course. Like, that's just so exciting, and what a great price. And thank you so much for being on the show today, my dear. I appreciate every time I can spend with you.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been so fun. And I really love being with you as well.
Awesome sauce. All right, my dears, have a healthy day. Thanks for joining us.
The very first day that I wore the device, I slept through the night, which is amazing.
It looks like a little watch, but it's actually a frequency device. It's bioenergetic, so it has this little frequency light situation that goes into your arm, and it pretty much makes an immediate difference.
So there's like a sleep mode. When I go mountain biking, I throw it on energy booster. Once I'm done mountain biking, I actually switch it to the other mode they have is pain and relief.
When I'm in a stressful situation and I put it on, it helps me almost immediately. I immediately feel calmer, whether that's a frequency or me knowing that it's working or knowing that it's helping in addition to that.
One of my buddies was like, do not discount this. This is an amazing device. You've got to give it a chance.
It's got so many options. I'm just going to go over, it's like a menu that you can choose. It's so easy to use. You just click on what you like. For example, it's got travel, pain relief, energy boost, allergies.
I really, really love this device. In fact, I have two of them because when one is charging, I want to wear the other because I'm never without it.
It will never give you something your body doesn't need, and it is not natural. That's what I love about the device.
Put it on focus, maybe halfway through the day as I was losing focus. And within about 10 minutes of turning on, I feel like my brain is just like, I'm connected. Like, wow.
Trying all the frequencies, and I love it. The one I'm using right now out on my walk is energy. It just energizes me. And I'm finding that I've got more stamina and more energy than I thought I would.
My Nikki helps me sleep better at night and helps me feel less stressed.
I really been enjoying it. So I've noticed my energy's been up. I've been sleeping better.
So the Nikki is one price, and then you pay for the frequency sets separately. So you can get the wellness one, which is awesome. I really do love the new Lime frequencies so much. It's incredible.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. WeAreNikki.com. The views, information, and opinions expressed in this content are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of FreeMedica. FreeMedica Technologies, Inc. and its employees are not responsible, nor verifies accuracy any of the information contained in the following content. The primary purpose of this content is to educate and inform. This content does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services.